everybody, it's Randy with Carchaeology, and today's video is out with the old and in with the older. That's right, the Mercedes CLS is on its way out. In fact, it sold to one of the viewers of the channel here. Thank you very much for taking this on. It's been a spectacular car for me. Seriously, one of the fastest cars I've ever owned. Phenomenally comfortable, beautifully maintained. This is a spectacular automobile, and I am going to miss it. And every time I see one of these, I think I'm going to kind of regret letting it go. But realistically, it's not getting a whole lot of use, and it's also not really me. I'm an old car guy, as you can see, with all the old cars around here, and this is kind of a modern machine. Granted, it's a 2007, so it's hardly new, but for me, it's new. I like cars that I can maintain myself. I don't feel like this is one I'm comfortable working on. I've got a good mechanic, but I like to do stuff myself. It's been a great car and a great experience to drive around in a big-time baller Benz. I mean, this thing was $130,000 when it was new, and it's shocking how cheap they are today. This is a CLS63. This is an AMG car. It's got the big motor in it. It's a little over 500 horsepower, and it is an absolute rocket ship. And it's going to make room for this right here, the 230 that I drove across the country here last week. And it's kind of an interesting thing to go from old to older, but it really fits my style, and I'm really excited about this particular car. It proved itself on the road. It's been a really neat machine. I've been spending some time cleaning it up and making it my own, doing some little touches to it, little detail things. I've ordered up some parts for it. I found some original literature. I'm really going hog wild in love with this car and researching it, and just kind of having fun with it. So I'm looking forward to putting this in the garage where this car once sat, and this one is going to go away tomorrow. But before it goes, I want to do a little walk around comparison of the two automobiles. Now, I am going to start with the Fintail here. This is a really neat car, and it excited me for many reasons, mostly because of its original condition, and I love the color. I love green cars, but I love nice survivor machines, and this one certainly fits that. It's also a fairly unique model because this is the short hood model. This is something that you would normally see with a 190 or any of the diesel models, a 200 perhaps. But this is actually a 230 with the 6-cylinder engine jammed underneath that big hood. Now, the 6-cylinder engine was also used in the 230S, which was a longer wheelbase version, had a little more chrome, and also had quad headlights in the front. I love the simplicity of the front end of this car with those single headlights. The little fog lights are a nice addition. I love the little marker lights, and I just love the Fintail design. Every time I've seen one of these cars, it kind of turns me on. I think it's really a neat thing and a part of Mercedes history that, was lost after this. Once they got rid of the Fintail, then they started rounding things off. And as you can see on the CLS here, you can't get much more rounder than that corner of that car. In fact, round and curves and everything was a big part of the design of this car, and it was a bit of a breakthrough for Mercedes at the time. When these cars came out, they stood out in the crowd. It was a bold thing for Mercedes to take on that sort of banana shape, that arc that this body has, the low window line. They called this a 4-door coupe, which is kind of funny because those two things don't usually go together. But as you can see, there's not a whole heck of a lot of room in that back seat. Certainly you can put some people in there, but I do have the seats back all the way because I'm a big dude. But this particular model, pretty fantastic. This is, again, a CLS63, but it is a Designo model. Now, the Designo package was something that was kind of a high-end or reasonably bespoke thing with Mercedes, where you could get a special color, you could get special interior decor, and this is one of those cars. They charged, I think it was about $6,000 extra for this paint color, and for a slightly different dash trim. If you look inside here, you can see that the dash trim here has kind of a matte finish to it, where a lot of the cars from the era had a real glossy wood grain finish to it. In any case, while I'm in here, this car, as you can see, is really quite clean. It's got less than 50,000 miles on it. I bought it from the original owner, and he always took care of it, always garaged it, and I followed suit and did the same. I did some fun work to it. I refinished the wheels on it because the original ones were chrome and they were looking a little sketch. But mostly I've maintained it, I've driven it, and I've had a good time with it. Let's go ahead and pop the trunk here, and we can see the trunk difference between the CLS and the 230. Now it looks like my folder of original paperwork here is sliding around. I got to pick that up. Sorry for the poor presentation, but it does have a massive trunk, as Mercedes always do, and that's a cool thing. It's also got a little remote closer, which is pretty fancy. This one, not quite as high tech. Push button to open it, but again, massive trunk. And check this out. When I was cleaning this thing out, I found this original tire jacking tag here. The original wheel here, or I don't know if it's the original spare, but it's a Michelin XZX radio, which is kind of a cool vintage thing. It's got the original jack in place there. It's got the jack handle, lug wrench, and the little positioning pin for putting the wheel back on, because these use a lug bolt, not a lug stud. So as you can see, you use that little piece, jam that in there, and that helps you line up the wheel when you're changing a tire. But check out the originality of this thing. This thing is super clean inside. That's all original finish, the original rubber mat, the original little decals and stuff there. Really pretty awesome. No remote closer, but boy, everything on this thing closes. So very nice. Let's take a peek in the interior of this one here. Let's look at rear seat room. Look at that. There is significantly more leg room in this car than in the CLS. And I do have the seat all the way back from driving this thing across the country. You can see this original interior in this car is really in amazing shape. And check out this door close. God, I love a Mercedes when it comes to that. The dash of this car, really sexy. Still has the ivory wheel here. My horn button here has a little crack in it. If any viewer out there has a new one of these or a better one of these without that crack, let me know in the comments. But check this thing out. Another thing I really love about this era of Mercedes is this fantastic speedometer. So as you go along, the speedometer runs vertically, which is kind of a neat thing. I've got an 8-track player in here, and of course I found the ultimate 8-track for this particular car, Kraftwerk Autobahn. Let's see if I can get this thing out of here. You can see that it actually has a fin-tail Mercedes right there on the label. In any case, that had to be the one to go in here. Definitely fun stuff. But I love the design of the dashboard. I love this big hard plastic wheel. I love that it's ivory in color and that it stands out in the interior. And I love that this car is also a manual transmission. Now, it is a manual on the column, which is something fairly unique. I've had Chevys with a 3-speed on the column, but this is actually a 4-speed on the column, which is pretty cool. So let's walk around here. I'll pop the hood here. You can see the mighty power plant in this. Significant horsepower difference between this and the engine in the CLS, but this is a really nice, big, strong 6-cylinder wedged in there pretty tight. I mean, definitely it takes up the whole space. You couldn't get much more engine in there, but they certainly made it fit. Now, again, this is the engine bay that was normally designed for the 4-cylinder car, but Mercedes wanted to do the short wheelbase car with a little bit bigger engine, dual carburetors on it, and that sort of thing. And that's what they did with this. So it was a very sporting cruiser for the time. This is before fuel injection also, which is what turns me on. So when the carburetors were giving me crap on the road, driving out here from Alabama, I was able to fix it on the side of the road with a little piece of wire through one of the idle jets, and I got that thing working just fine. I don't have the brain to sort through the fuel injection on stuff like that. But in any case, that's the engine of that, and now I'll show you the engine in the CLS. All right, now the mighty engine in the CLS. This is a 6.3 liter, 8-cylinder, normally aspirated, absolute rocket ship of a beast. Now this is a little over 500 horsepower. I think they rated it 517 horsepower, where the 230 here I think is maybe 130 horsepower. So it's a different driving experience, to say the least. But the one thing that remains the same between the two cars is that Mercedes quality. There's something about the solidity of the way that Mercedes does their stuff. Doors open and close so nice. The cars ride so smooth and solid on the road. This one, being 58 years old and having who knows how many miles on it, was so incredibly sound on the highway coming across the country, eating up potholes like they didn't exist. No rattles, no clunks, nothing funky. And that's something that I love about the brand Mercedes. Certainly the CLS provides that as well, although with those low profile tires on those big wheels, well, it doesn't quite cushion the bumps quite the same. Although that does have air ride suspension, you can adjust the height of it a little bit depending on your roadway. You've got all sorts of different controls. It's got heated seats, it's got fanny tinglers, it's got all the stuff that you would want in a modern luxury car that the 230 lacks. There's no air conditioning in this. Quite frankly, the heat doesn't even work, but I'm still in love with driving this car. So there you go, the walk around, the older replacing the not so old. Two of Mercedes' finest automobiles here. I love German cars, and I'm really enjoying Mercedes. And these two are ones that will certainly sink well into my memory banks and be an enjoyable experience all the way. So I'm going to say goodbye to the CLS tomorrow. The truck is coming to pick it off to take it back to its new owner. I wish him as much fun with it as I had. Spectacular car. Take care of it well. Treat it well. It'll treat you well. Have fun with it. Don't get too crazy. This thing can hurt you if you jam that go pedal a little too hard. But I'm going to be here going slow in the 66 230. Thanks for watching, everybody. My little Mercedes story for the day. Keep on digging them up and driving them.